This is our home, a 110-year-old elementary school. It was built to teach rural kids how to read and do math, not necessarily to raise 3 of them, but that's exactly what we're doing. Four years ago, we bought Union Joint Graded School Number 9 in rough shape and started figuring out how to restore it one project and problem at a time. We definitely chose a harder path to a house, and there were moments when it wasn't obvious that we were going to survive that choice. Over here, we've got the leakiest room of all, which of course is a little depressing right now, but once we get the roof on, this will stop raining inside. But over time, classrooms turned into bedrooms, hallways turned into living space, and every day, this building reminds us of what it used to be. A place to learn and grow and teach big and little minds. We're just its latest class. All right, ready, Marge? Marge! Some of the journey has been loud and dusty and structural, and some of it has been surprisingly quiet. And this past month, everything changed again, because we brought home a new baby. Meet Griffin, the newest student in the schoolhouse. So I got this little tracksuit off of Poshmark, and I've already customized it. He's got his little sweater on with the crest. Don't worry, bud. I've got about all the sizes you need until you get to age 7. When you decide that your mom is horrifically embarrassing. Gobble, gobble. Look like you're ready for Brighton Beach. Today's video is all about what life looks like and feels like when you try to raise a family inside an unconventional building that was never meant to be a home. A building that still thinks that it's in charge. We have a package. Now, before I get to talking about what it's like living in a weird old house, today's video is brought to you by Thrive Market. They are awesome, especially during this time when things in our life are a bit busier than they were with just 2 kids. I don't have time anymore to wander the grocery and read labels before someone has a meltdown. Never you, Griffy, right? Thrive Market is an online membership grocery store for really good, healthier swaps. Everything shows up at our door, and it's actually cheaper than the regular store. Having a winter baby has definitely disrupted all of my systems and processes. I love that instead of paying for delivery fees, for just $5 a month, I can have access to Thrive Market, where there are thousands of healthy groceries that I can get delivered to my door. Oh, hi, Bubba. And they have an amazing deals section. In here, I've got some diapers, vitamin D drops that tiny babies need. All of the brands on Thrive are like this brand, Genexa, where they're held to the highest standards in the industry. Okay, and then in here, we've got some really fun treasures that are hard to get because we don't live near like Whole Foods. White anchovies and some Fly by Jane snacks for the kids' lunch boxes. I'm really excited to try this Algae Cooking Club non-alcoholic cocktails. You wanna pack any of this stuff in your lunchbox? Some Moonions. The other awesome thing is everything is already curated to avoid tons of ingredients that I don't want. Only when you go to thrivemarket.com/schoolhousehomestead do you get 30% off your first order and a free gift. Right, Griff? Or you can check the link in my description to see what they have to offer. So after about a year and a half of living here, a lot of times this place acts more like a school than a house. Sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that can be a little irritating. On the annoying list, a lot of that looks like any old building, like fending off a century-old ecosystem of insects in the basement. We aren't going in. I am happy to say that it's been over 4 years since I've seen a cricket spider. Also on the bad list, surprise expenses, of which there have been many. Problems that require very creative and very clever contractors, and a lot of continued cleanup and grunt work. But most things in the schoolhouse kind of live on both the good and the bad list. I'm gonna see if he'll go to sleep. Take the windows. I love these windows. They're definitely one of my favorite parts of the whole schoolhouse. But they've also been the biggest headache of the entire renovation. And I have toddlers. Okay, so this is the living room. And there's water underneath. Over here you can see it really bad in the center. We've been dealing with the window mess for about 3 years now. We had to hire lawyers, and we had to have them installed 3 different times, with the 3rd time finally being the charm this summer, with thanks to Marissa's crew from M&M, who actually followed the instructions. But I'm gonna save that whole saga for another video when we finally get all of the trim finished and then painted. The school's also pretty big. It's about 9,500 square feet, including the unfinished basement, and we live in roughly 4,000 square feet upstairs. The schoolhouse space, it's amazing for toddlers and big gatherings, and it's also a lot to heat and cool and take care of. And while we never would have built a house this large if we were making the plans, at least in this phase of our life, I really do love the space. We get to have a workshop in our basement, and the cocktail cellar is coming along, and I'm especially thankful for the dungeon room for the kids.
You guys are having so much fun. This is the coolest.
The 13-foot ceilings are another good bad situation. They make the house feel incredible, like a Brooklyn loft was just dropped into the middle of a bunch of cornfields. But they also mean that fixing or cleaning anything requires a 10-foot ladder and a deep breath. I really don't love climbing that ladder when the kids are awake and running around. For example, a few days after bringing baby Griffin home, our smoke detectors started acting up and somehow got disconnected from each other. The customer service told me to collect almost 16 of them from the ceilings and bring them together to reconnect them. Wasn't the DIY project that I wanted to be working on right after bringing home a new baby. But hiccups aside, most days I really do love the height, and I love, love, love the light. Living in a quirky non-house building really becomes an exercise in perspective. And now that we're on the other side of the hardest construction, I can see that this place is constantly teaching us things. A lot of the teaching has been about learning how to do things ourselves, because life in a house that isn't normal requires creative solutions and a lot of custom work. Now, We both come from handy families, but before this, we're New York City apartment renters our entire adult lives. And this is our first house, and it's obviously quite a house, so it came with a very fast education. Lately, one of the projects that I've been most excited about has been in the kitchen, where we've been building something that we've been dreaming about for a long time. A library for the cookbook collection made entirely out of salvaged materials, and some leftover tile that we used in our bathroom. And while the projects and learning have turned out to be one of the best things about the schoolhouse, there are plenty of other beautiful little things that make life in this quirky house truly magical. And I'm just so grateful every day that we get to make this place our home for the decades to come. Along with all the lessons in woodworking and native landscaping and general grunt work, this school has quietly taught us a lot about design. Mostly how to listen to a space instead of trying to impose a vision on it. Decorating the schoolhouse is not about following trends, or at least I try to resist them as much as I possibly can. It's about listening to what feels right and letting the building help tell its own story. I used to love ornate antiques and full-on Victorian parlors and bohemian rooms, but once we bought the school, all of that suddenly felt deeply incorrect. And I think because this building is so tied to kids, it deserves things that feel whimsical and playful, a little handmade and colorful. I've always loved antiques and found objects, but here the rule is pretty simple. If it looks like it could have belonged in this building, it belongs. And one way I use this philosophy to help make decorating the school easier is through the paint. I was so daunted by choosing the paint colors for the schoolhouse in the beginning, until Sean had the idea, why don't we just use all the colors from the original walls that we found during construction? I loved that because it kind of took the decision making off our plate and it helps tell the story of this incredible building. We're still living with lots of hand-me-downs and some stragglers from apartments and quite a few things from the streets of New York City. But we're decorating slowly with a lot of help from people who have given us precious things. And the goal is a cozy home with nods to the school's past. So many of these school artifacts from 50, 60, even 100 years ago, they were strictly functional back then. But with some time, I think they've turned into little pieces of art. Some of my favorite pieces in the school came from a friend halfway across the world.
Hey, my name is Leonard, and this is my vintage store in Slovenia.
I've talked about Leonard before in previous episodes, but I am so thankful for this little friendship, and he keeps sending over some of his finds. Leonard is a young entrepreneur who runs an Etsy shop over in Slovenia. I originally started talking with him because he sold us our gorgeous dining chairs a couple years ago that were pulled straight from his elementary school in Slovenia and restored by him and his dad. We stayed in touch after that and eventually started a very serious transatlantic snack exchange.
You have to try it for dinner time.
Okay.
I'll eat it for dinner.
You'll eat that for dinner? Are you packing Leonard some Gushers? Yeah. I don't know if he's gonna like that, but we'll see. Gummies, little ribbons. Look at these. Snacks.
I have so much respect for what Lennart does, traveling around Slovenia and Italy and Central Europe, sourcing and restoring old furniture and light fixtures. And before he was even 20, he was already building a career out of it. And once Lennart realized that I love antique educational charts like the ones that came with the chairs, he started sending more. And every once in a while, a miraculous package like this shows up.
Wow, what is on here? Wow. Oh, this is amazing. Oh, wow. A skeleton. You love skeletons, don't you?
These wall hangings were actually intended for a burn pile before Lennart rescued them, which still feels so unbelievable to me, but one man's old school trash is priceless treasure for a weird lady who's turning a school into her house. And because they were sitting on a burn pile for a while, some of these hangings needed a little TLC. So lately, I've been slowly restoring them, cleaning them up, repairing what I can, and finding them new homes around the school.
Okay, this one's very brittle, so I'm gonna have to get it wet a little bit, which makes me really nervous, but I think that's the only way I'm gonna be able to repair it.
I have a long way to go for museum-grade restorations, but these hangings are sturdied up and ready to last another few decades of being appreciated here in our little school. And I love how they turn the office into something that feels like a little Wes Anderson movie. I don't know if this is their permanent spot, but it's making me really excited to start working on building a proper library in here. Working on all these projects has had me thinking a ton about what we want to teach our kids during their tenure of living here in the schoolhouse. It's also so crazy just in making this video how much little Griff has grown.
You're putting that on there? That cricket is a tool for you.
Before we bought the school, one of the things that excited us most about the schoolhouse was the opportunity for projects like all of these, for us and for them. It's so gratifying to work slowly, project by project, to learn and infuse your home with depth and meaning, and hopefully pass the knowledge along to some of these knuckleheads. Involving the kids right now takes about 17 times longer, and I have to use my patience muscle constantly, and I'm not always successful. And we'll mess up in plenty of ways, but I hope that this schoolhouse teaches the kids curiosity, how to use their hands, and how to stick with something even when it's inconvenient. I hope that they learn that digging holes and growing things and making everything from reindeer to lasagna is worth the work, that making things with your hands and making messes while you restore old stuff is worth it.
Hi, Griffin. Hi, Griffin.
This building asks a lot from us. It's taught us things we didn't ask to learn, and most days I'm grateful that it did. Most of the lessons have been good ones. And over time, I hope we get to keep telling its story, one project at a time. Even if things move a little slower these days with the newest little gremlin keeping us busy. Up next, I'm really excited to share more of the process that we're making in the kitchen and give a full 2026 tour with all that has changed over the last year. And before you go, thanks again to today's sponsor, Thrive Market. You can click the link in the description or head to thrivemarket.com/schoolhousehomestead to get 30% off your first order and a free gift when you join. Until next time.